In theaters now, probably incredibly briefly by the time you see this video, is the Indian action film YODHA. It's not about a character from Star Wars. YODHA is about this team of, think Navy SEALs, think special ops. It's an Indian crack commando squad who is sent in on impossible missions to take care of business, and they're the most elite special forces squad in India, and is YODHA is what it's called. So if I keep saying Yoda, or if I say Yoda again, I know it's hard. Try to put the little green guy from the Star Wars movies out of your head. This is a brand new film directed by Sagar, Ambre, and Pushkar Ojha, and it stars Sidharth Malhotra as, yeah, I said that right. Sorry, reading the names here. As a man who is part of this titular YODHA group, who the film opens, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, film opens, special mission going on, and terrorists on the border. I think it's the border with Burma. They're right on the border. Terrorists have hostages, and they have demands, and they're going to try to run across the border. And once they cross the border, this crack squad is not going to be able to do anything to stop them. So our hero, again portrayed by Sidharth Malhotra, who's really cool, who he takes it upon himself to just be a super badass. Engages in, yes, there is an actual zipline commando in this film. What's something that always makes a movie better, just like a Monkey or Dick Miller. Zipline commando is something I love to see on film. He just goes in and just lays waste to these guys, and the action in this movie is really good. The action is, I'm a person who, for me, the late 80s into the mid 90s, Hong Kong action films were what set the standard for what action could and should be on film, and India is the country now, to me, that I'm seeing that is really continuing that tradition. They're not risking people's lives like they did in Hong Kong, but boy, is the action insane and badass and fun. Really, really good hand-to-hand combat, martial artsy action, fisticuffs in this film several times throughout. And some of the action is just ridiculous. Like when he zipline commandos into this hut and starts taking people out, the way he did it had me giggling in a good way. Sometimes if I'm just overwhelmed with joy and cinematic reverie, I just turn into a giggling little schoolgirl, and that happens several times through this movie, which to me is an earmark of a successful film for my lifestyle. So he goes in. The only downside about the action in this movie, I will say, it was a little shaky. Now, it's not what I refer to as the disease that started infiltrating American films in the late 90s. It's not as bad as it is here a lot of the time, where you just flat out can't see anything that's going on. It's just the camera's a little bit too close, and it moves a little bit too much to try to make things exciting. That's never necessary, because when you have a movie like this and the action and stunt choreography is this good, that's impressive by itself. I don't need to be excited by a camera shaking, because what these guys are doing is nuts, and the choreography is phenomenal. So this opening sequence, it really grabs you by the lapels and shakes you. The dynamic this film sets up is that our hero is in this commando squad, in the YODHA squad, and his fiancée, girlfriend, wife, I guess, is on the other side of the headset, essentially. She's working in the government, helping to coordinate these things, so she worries about him and how cocky he is and how reckless he is. And there's a little bit of a dynamic in their relationship. It's a wonderful, loving relationship, as is evidenced by a beautiful musical montage. There's no bursting into song in this film. That's one of the things about Indian films that's unusual for Western eyes, that I always find wonderful and kind of funny at times. Just their tradition is, for most genres of film, at some point, people will just engage in these gigantic musical production numbers and then go back to the story. And so it's sort of like reality pauses, and you get a lush MGM musical number, and then the story continues. More often now, I'm seeing that we're still getting the musical sequences, but they're just montages with a song played over them. So that's what this film does. So they've got that dynamic in their relationship. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. There is a Passenger 57 situation where our hero is acting as a bodyguard for India's top nuclear scientist. That plane that they're on is hijacked by terrorists. He's the man on the inside, and it's a very tense situation. His wife is on the other side of the headset. She's like, "Oh my God, my guy is in there. Will he survive? What will he do?" And it's this fantastic hijack sequence. Something goes wrong in that. And the government, I hate telling you the whole story, but it really kind of sets up where this film is going. Something goes wrong with that. The government blames that squad, blames our hero, and they essentially dissolve that organization. and our hero becomes basically, they call it an air commando in this film, but like what we would call an air marshal. Finds himself again in a potential hijack situation, and things get really complex, and things get, you don't know, it's in a good way, you don't know what's going on. Who is behind this? What's going on? The plotting is really intricate and tricky. This film was so good. This is a film I could easily see being remade as an American film. Only downside is that it would probably draw a lot of comparisons to the Wesley Snipes movie Passenger 57, because it's in the broad strokes of things, that's kind of what this movie feels like. But it is never boring. This movie's 2 hours and 10 minutes. There is not a moment where I felt like I was wanting to look at my watch or I could get up to go to the bathroom. And that's one of the fantastic things about Indian cinema, is that the films, I say to Western taste, the films are very long. We're getting used to really long movies here. Pick a superhero movie. Pick a film about a person in a cape and it's 2.5 hours long. But Indian films minimum tend to be 2.5, and they're never boring because they have enough plot to fill that runtime, and this does that. And they also have, unfortunately, Indian films have built in an intermission. So when shown in India, they actually pause a long movie to let you get up and, I don't know, go to the bathroom and get food and make the theaters more money. In this country, they never do that. So when you see an Indian film in an American cinema like I do, the words intermission or interval comes up at like a really cliffhangery moment in the film, and then it fades to black, and then the movie immediately continues. So you get out of the theater a little bit earlier, but there really is no chance to get out of the theater without missing anything, unfortunately. Side note, I really, really wish the American film industry and theaters would bring intermissions back. They'd make more money. So anyway, so that's the basic idea. It's a Passenger 57 situation. Our super badass hero is on a plane that's being hijacked. There are very, very high stakes. The plane may be crashing into or targeting or trying to upset a big peace treaty that's going on in India. The film is set in 2001 in the years immediately following, by the way. So there is, I think they mostly just do that, partially probably for world history, but also just to not have to deal with the whole, everybody has a cell phone thing. The cell phones in here are the old flip phone kind of thing. So it limits what, magic you can do with a device in these movies. There is, again, the action is fantastic in this movie. This movie is really well shot. This movie is so, I say commercial. If as an American moviegoer, you think, films in other countries, they exist, but most normal people don't really watch them, and you would just think they're not up to the standards of America. They're not up to the gloss of America. Guess what? There is toe-to-toe. They're equally as good. And this is as good as any American action movie, if not better, that I've seen in the theater for the last several years. Maybe not the John Wick caliber, but everything else is just so bloated and so dumb and so over the top and phony and all that. This movie has a little of the phony over the top, but overall, it's super solid. So I guess if you like the airport movies too, this would be good, or things like that. There is, I'm not going to tell you the story anymore. There is a moment in this film though where it gives me action that I've never seen. The hero is fighting the villain at some point in the storyline of this film inside a plane that is barrel rolling, and the camera is basically stationary while the plane barrel rolls. So it's the same technology that Fred Astaire used in Royal Wedding back in the 40s, or Lionel Richie used in the Dancing on the Ceiling video, where two people are just going at it, fighting, while the plane is rotating. And it was just like, this film has just given me something I've never seen before. And I greatly respect that. Any film that shows me, when you've seen as many movies as I have and you love going to the movies as much as I have, you're looking for kicks at this point. You're looking for something you've never seen before. And when a film can do that, I thank it for that. So as I say, a lot of twists, a lot of surprises in this movie. Never boring, so fun. Our leads are really good. I've never seen a film with this lead actor before, and I look forward to more now because he's so good with the physical. He's so good with the hand-to-hand. There are so many moments where I was giggling at how badass it was and how dark it was and how he would dispatch a bad guy. It's violent, if you're looking for that. Not explicit, but just violent. And it's very nationalistic. So there are times where our hero, accomplishes something and he sets off like a smoke flare to let, the rest of his team or the government or the police or whoever know that, he's okay and things have been taken care of. And the colors, I believe, are the Indian flag. And there's a song at the end that I meant to do my research. I don't know if it's an Indian national anthem or if it's just a song that feels like it is, but it's very rah-rah at the end. I wanted to stand up and cheer. at the end of the movie, and it's multiple times in the movie, and I wish I could have seen this with like a full audience of either in India or native, you know, people of Indian descent or an Indian audience, because I could imagine a lot of cheering and applauding at various times in this movie. This movie is so much fun. So that is all I have to say about this. It is in theaters as I speak, but it won't be for very long. But it does say at the beginning what the streaming partner Netflix. So it had the Netflix logo at the beginning. So if you are in this or other countries and you miss this in the theaters, I'd say give it a month or two, write it down, YODHA. It'll be on Netflix eventually. So much fun. YODHA.